What's up, mi gente? It's the community finance coach, aka Mr. Remedy, and you are watching our Money Monday edition, sponsored by Fresh Start Advancement. Today, we're talking about the American dream. I have my brother here, Oscar Gill, with me. Thank you so much, Oscar, for coming on. How are you today?
I'm great, Anthony. I'm actually excited to be here and to speak about what the American dream means to me and to hopefully encourage others to follow that dream.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those that are watching, I created this Money Monday segment where I can bring my friends, my partners, to come on. The idea is to save money or make money. The last 9 years plus, I've been working as a finance coach, staying in my lane, working with debt and credit. And this is one of the ways where we can kind of keep the conversation different, changing the narrative, disrupting the system. I even have my American flag golf shirt on today, talking about the American dream. So I'm excited. For those that are watching on the live, hashtag live. For those that are watching on the replay, hashtag replay. Like, comment, share. We'd love to engage with you. Let's jump right in. So, Oscar, we met at Temple Rock Church in Newark. I want to shout them out under Pastor Pablo, Pastor Erica. You and we created a friendship or brotherhood. You've invited me to your home. We fellowship together. I look up to you. I always tell you all the time, one-on-one, how you inspire me and you motivate me from a business standpoint, from a family standpoint, and my faith-based standpoint. Oscar, so tell us a little bit more about your story and your journey being first generation.
I am a first generation immigrant. My parents came over here about 30 something years ago. I came here in 1988, which is just about 30 something, 36, 37 years ago. I came here illegally. I didn't have any documents up until the year 2000. That didn't stop me from, pursuing my purpose and going towards the American dream, which was do really good in school, work hard in high school, do internships, and then, ultimately go to college. Finally, in 2001, I was able to get the TPS, which means temporary protected status, which allowed me to work and go to school legally for the first time. And, what I encourage people to always, and I've spoken to a lot of people who are illegals or who are going through the process of becoming legal, right, is to not have that deter their purpose, not have that deter all the goals and dreams and aspirations that they have, and the great thing about America is that it was founded on Christianity principles, right? And all those principles we can live out today. If God puts a purpose or God puts a goal or set in mind in our hearts, we can work towards that goal. We can do everything else, all the small steps that it takes to get to that goal, right? And ultimately, he's working in the background to make sure those bigger steps get accomplished, right? And for me, it was in 2015, I finally got my green card, right? I tell people all the time, if I would have just been waiting and not working and not striving the way I was for all those previous years, when 2015 came around, I wouldn't have been able to take full advantage of what becoming an American citizen, American green card holder, and then a citizen 3 years later could have become, right? Because again, I would have been holding myself back from attaining everything that God had for me. In 2015, I finally got my green card. In 2018, I got my citizenship, and in that year, I started my own business. And now, just about 7 years later, I have a very successful warehouse business, and we've reached out to start other businesses. And now my goal has been not only to start other businesses, but to help other entrepreneurs who want to start a business that might not have the financial resources, might not have the capacity to know all the different intricacies that it takes to set up a business, maintain a business, and grow a business. And so now that's been my purpose for the last couple of years, which is to do that. And hopefully I'm doing that correctly. It's always a challenge, no matter what you do, whether it's scholastic, business-wise, to make sure that you stay on purpose the way God intended it to be, right? Because we all fall short of the glory of God, but we can also all fall short to greed, to all these other things that come in play when you're working with money, especially. But, I admire you and everything that you do for the community, because and we talk about this so much. We want to put first God and then making money, right? And people might not be able to see that per se, right, unless they know your heart. And luckily, we've been able to share enough with each other to know where our heart is and to know which way or what drives us, right? Unfortunately, unless people know you intricately, that so many things can be said about you and so many things can happen around you that you wouldn't even uh, understand how people would assume that, again, without knowing you. So, I admire what you
Right.
do, and admire the heart that you have for what you do, because I have the same heart, and it's hard for us to give that to people, off to people, or give that, they have to see it and they have to uh, receive it by knowing us.
Right. And we talk a little bit about scripture, right? We let in. So Leviticus 19:34, the foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them
Mm.
as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And I wanted to give everybody a quote. This is from John F. Kennedy now. Everywhere immigrants have enriched and strengthened the fabric of American life. So this is a very important conversation, the American dream. And what is the American dream for you? So those that are watching, if you're first generation, if English is a second language, please comment, engage with us. We would like to know your story as well. So Oscar, as an immigrant growing up, I know you opened your business and you were you're active in the community. How was it like, just trying to stay out of trouble, finish school? How was that like as an immigrant?
Definitely was challenging, because as a knucklehead teenager, you still want to do the things that teenagers do, right? Stay out late, run around with your friends. For me, in the young age, it was a lot of listening to rap music, graffiti, skateboarding in illegal places, right? Because even skateboarding is not allowed in certain places because it's a business building, or it's a church, you
We're
know.
aging ourselves being from New York, but
So even back then, skating, right? You couldn't go to. There was no skate parks. Like now, kids are blessed to have skate parks. There was no such
right.
thing back then. You hit a skate park or whatever plaza you found yourself in, right? And that was illegal in its way, right? You could get in trouble. You get a misdemeanor for damaging property or whatever, even though that wasn't the intention, right? And so it helped me to stay very focused on making sure that I didn't do anything wrong or anything that could put me in the spotlight where I could be even if it's not even arrested, but detained or questioned, right? And that was a tough way to live. It's a tough way to live, knowing that everything that you've done. I used to get 90s in school. I used to do internships, and I would think, oh man, like one thing that I could do wrong could derail all this that I've done right. But I will encourage people to tell them that when you're doing everything right, and God is in the battle with you, you don't even know what he's doing until later on. But I'm going to encourage you today to know that he is there. He is working, right? I was doing a bunch of internships, and from the last internship, I was able to get a job at the World Trade Center. So I worked for the
Oh
Hartford
wow.
Insurance, and people could go and look it up. I worked at the Hartford Insurance, Building 7 of the World Trade Center. We had the floors 14 through 22. I was in the mail room, delivering the mail, picking up the mail, running. Back then, it wasn't called FedEx; it was called airborne packages left and right, UPS. So what I do now, which is warehousing and shipping, I was already doing it, but with mail back then, right? And
Wow.
I got the job from an internship, so I never had to go through the process of giving somebody my social security card, showing them my citizenship documents, anything. They just grabbed everything from my high school documents and let me work, right? 3 years later, in 2001, when I get my TPS, I call the head office in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm like, hey guys, I just want to give you my social security number because the number you had wasn't working correctly and I had issues. And they tell me, Oscar Gill? I'm like, yes, that we've been looking for you for 3 years. We call
Wow.
your every month because we need to make sure that we had the updated documents. And I told them, well, there's only 4 people in my office, me, another intern, and the two managers. And you weren't able to get a hold of me. They're like, no, we haven't been able to get a hold of you for 3 years. But thank you for sending me the information. We'll send you back all your updated W-2s today. And now
Wow.
that I've been in Christ for so long, it reminded me how God kept me hidden. There was a season in my life where God had to keep me hidden from all these other things, right? And he allowed me
Mm.
to pay off my college during that time. And so, I understand that we have to work a certain way, right? Being immigrants and maybe not having the right documents. But I encourage you to go out, live your life, you know, have faith and trust in God that He's going to have you covered wherever you are. Even in the middle of a federal building where I had to show my ID every time I walked in through the building.
Wow, I can only imagine, right? That's like someone who committed a crime going to the police station.
Just like that, man.
I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, it sounds like, you weren't taking it for granted, as most don't, right? I mean, there's a negative connotation about immigration everywhere in the world, right? And we're in a chaotic state right now. Let's just face it, right? Just uncertainty in different parts of the world. Hebrews 13:2 says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by doing so, some people have entertained angels without knowing it." I think that we got to go back to the roots, right? Treat others how you want to be treated, and everybody deserves the American dream, right? I appreciate how you said about seasons. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because those that are watching, they might struggle with English as a second language. They might be working on their documentation. So what would you say that in their season? How can you encourage them, or what would you say?
So the Bible talks about there's seasons where we work, and then there's seasons where we see the bounty of our work, right? Everything that we've done finally comes to fruition, right? But I think that as an immigrant, and depending on where you are in the process, right? Whether you're starting the process off, whether you're halfway through the process, or you're getting to the end of your process, right? Getting your documents, getting everything in order. I think again, doing everything the right way, right? My parents filled out taxes, submitted them. They would never get a return because they weren't allowed to, not having the right documentation. But they paid their taxes, right? So year after year, they would pay their taxes, even though there was no benefit for them. But legally, it was the right thing to do, right?
Wow.
Then in fast forward in 2000, I think it was around 2019, I was able to get my parents their green cards with me being a citizen. And we took a trip down to the IRS office, right? Social Security office, sorry. And we
Mm.
submitted taxes that my dad had filled out since 1985. And they credited his account with all those taxes, right? So he got
Wow.
full for everything that he had paid into his Social Securities since 1985, right? Now, you can think, well, I'm illegal. I won't pay taxes, or I won't follow this process, or I, I'm telling you, when you do things the right way, right, God stands before you, and He'll make sure that whatever you have labored for, that you end up getting at the end of the day, right? Again, whether there's paperwork you have to do it the right way. If it's your taxes, do it the right way. Whatever it is that you need to do to continue the process that you're in, do it the right way. Don't take it always like you need to be in a season where you're getting the bounty, right? Because I think that's what happens. We're working hard, but why am I not seeing benefits right now? I'm working hard. Why am I not seeing my goals prosper at this very moment? And a lot of the times, our faith has to step in, and we have to pray for it, right? To step in and say, well, God, I'm going to just work diligently. I'm going to do what you've put me to do. And even if I don't see results today, no. And we have to rest assured in Him. And if you read His word, it says it over and over again, right? Rest and be assured. He says it
Mm.
over and over. Just to rest, because we become impatient. We become anxiety, but He continues to tell us to rest in Him. And if you do that, I can guarantee you, I'm a testimony to that, right? Everything that I did led to Him being able to fulfill my purpose. Now I have new purposes in life. Everything my parents worked for, they were able to now get paid for, now that they're retired. But I encourage you, work each season the way that the season is driving you. If it's a time to work, work. If it's a time to collect, collect.
I like that. As you were sharing, we had one of the viewers that's watching us. I just want to put her here, Sylvia Elena. She's been. Let me pull it up here. She goes, "Dios le bendiga a ambos." Let me see here. Very nice. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for watching. I think that what you're saying. it speaks volume, right, Oscar? Because a lot of people want the American dream, but they don't know what season they're in, and it's kind of hard to understand that when you're in the mud, right? When you're in, boots on the ground. I think that most people don't give credit. I put a fun fact up. It says, did you know that 46% of Fortune 500 companies were formed by immigrants? Right? Just because maybe we're not born here, or if we are, we shouldn't take advantage, right? But if we're not, then, hey, people are coming here and they're saying this is a land of opportunity. And, they say here, fun fact, immigrants make up over 25% of agriculture workers, right? I think that people will probably agree with that. Why do you think that immigrants take on work that most people here won't do? And if you're watching live, please hashtag live and tell us what you thought. Why do we find, that there's so much work? People say there's no work out there, but
Mm.
my contractors are busy, my electricians are busy, my landscapers are busy. I mean, every plumber and landscaper I know is probably generating over $7 million or a couple $1 million a year. It's I think it's a mindset, and we have to kind of come to this understanding that anybody here could be a business owner. And Oscar, as you're working things out, I wanted to put another fun fact here. It says, as of 2025, 60% of leading US based AI startups have immigrant founders. So I'm interested, for those that are watching, were you born here? Were you born overseas? Let us know right now. If you were born overseas, put hashtag the country you're from. If you're born in the US, tag US. But Oscar, my question to you was, why do you feel that there is like a stigma, and the work that's available, a lot of people who were born here don't want to do it?
I think that the way that our culture, and even in schools, the way we're being taught is to have this microwave career, right? They think that they're going to go to college, and when they get out of college, they're going to have the career ready for them. And unfortunately, for me as a business owner, what I think that college does for any employees that I want to, look at and maybe employ, is that it knows that I know that they are people that can show up to work on time, people that can meet deadlines, people that can do some research if needed, right? But it doesn't tell me that they know how to do the task at hand, because I'm sure you're aware, you do financial coaching a certain way. There's 10 other people who do the same thing you do, but they do it a different way. And if they came to work for you, you would have to teach them your way, your systems, the way that you want to have your service delivered to your clients. The same thing happens in every business, whether it's a tech company, whether it's a shipping or warehousing company. You know, some of the things, some of the steps are fundamental, but the way that you go about those steps is very ingrained into the way that company is run. And you can only learn that on the job. And then you can only influence that on the job, right? So I started working when I was 18, well, 16 years old, like I mentioned. By the time I was 20 years old, I was already getting paid like a manager, right?
Mhm.
When my wife graduated when she was 23, 22 or 23, she graduated from college. I was making more money than she made.
Right. Yeah. I mean, everybody has a different path. And, for those that work hard, especially that as an immigrant, you're trying to stay out of trouble and keep your head afloat, you're going to work hard. You probably get seen more because you're taking on roles and tasks that most people don't do, which I think that's amazing. How many people are here that are, tired and sick and tired of being sick and tired, doing the same thing, expecting different results? I mean, immigrant or not, like I said, we're talking here about the American dream. What does the American dream mean to you? I'll take a minute, to put here in the chat, but I would love to hear from you. What does the American dream mean to you? I think that it has a different meaning to everybody. For me, I think about the times when I was in Coney Island and, growing up, being in New York, and it's just such a melting pot. You get so much different culture with the music and the food. Oscar, I was asking everybody, what does the American dream mean to them? And I know that you wanted to finish your thought on how come people aren't taking, opportunities that are there. And you were sharing that, working in your company, you were able to kind of get promotions and increase your pay. Tell us more.
Yes, I think again the most important thing is to know that there's a grind, and again, just like biblically, there's a grind, and there's it's going to be a time where you just need to work hard and learn, right? And sometimes people don't want that part because that's the part where you get paid minimum wage, right? You get paid minimum wage for a year or two while you learn everything, right? But I'm going to give a shout out to one of my good friends. His name is Daniel Perez, right? He was working for Gray Bar, which is a company that provides a lot of electrical things that you might need for a big job site, and he was making good money. And but he knew that he had reached the top of that profession, right? He was like, look, I'm not going to make more here. I might become a manager and make a little bit more, but there's nowhere for me to go. And he was young. He was maybe in his 37, 38, but he was already over in a position where you can say he had a career, right? And he had heard that there was a real big need for uh, mechanics to fix a lot of those older elevators in New York City. So
Mm.
he took a step back and he went to go work for someone being an apprentice. And he was
Wow.
getting paid, basically nothing compared to what he was making before. And his job was be on site with the mechanics. If they need a part, he would put his book bag on, take the train out to Queens, pick up the parts, come back to the job site, and do what he had to do there, right? And he did
Wow.
this for I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I remember the amount of time, but it was around a year and a half, right? And
But still a lot of
after
commuting and sacrifice on income, of course. How many of us here would, be comfortable with a high paying job? Um, Maybe it doesn't line up with your purpose and goals, and you go back into the workforce or you have a change in career. I mean, I know a lot of times people have career changes. Um, you know, People that I coach on a daily basis are constantly having career changes or reinventing themselves. So definitely. So wow. So he was there for a year and a half.
yeah, sorry, I keep getting kicked off. But then
Okay.
he was given a mechanic's job, finally. He was given his own route, and he started making three times, whatever he was making before. And they were offering him continuous overtime, right? It changed up his whole schedule, changed up his whole life. But now, right, he just bought a house in Pennsylvania. He has this Civic Type R car that he loved and he wanted to have, for a long time. So now he's been living his best life, right? But it took him having to take a step back, uh, kind of change the way he was living, lower his expenses, for about a 2-year process to then start to see the fruition 4 years later, right? And that's the part that a
Wow.
lot of people don't want to do. They don't want to have to take 2, 3, 4 years to make something of themselves, right? They think that if they jump job to job every 6 months, that's going to make a change. That might make a change if you already have the skills that you can afford to give to someone, right? But if you're learning the skills, you can't be jumping jobs every 6 months. You're not going to have enough time to learn those skills, to learn how to apply them, and then to be able to benefit off them, right? Because if I just know the concepts, I won't make money from them. But if I know how to apply those concepts and how to use those concepts anywhere I go, whether they're shipping, clothing, or whether they're shipping coffins. Now I can apply that anywhere. Now I can, when I go somewhere, someone sees value in me because they're like, oh wait, okay, I see something. I see that you've done this before. Let me see if that helps my company. And most people, they want to pay someone who brings value to them, right?
Of
And
course.
whether that value is by knowledge, and a lot of times right now, all we really have as a value is our youth and our energy, right? Because we're lacking the skills that you would learn being somewhere, sitting for 2 or 3 years, right? And this is the same thing biblically, right? If you go to a church and you sit and you don't participate and you don't move and you don't allow yourself to grow spiritually, you can't say, well, I'm going to go somewhere else and think that anything's going to change, right? But if you're there for 3 4 years and then you're helping, you're part of the ministry, you're part of the people that are helping it move forward. Anywhere you go, you're going to be an asset because you've already learned how to do that, right? You've already learned how to apply everything that you're learning from the scriptures into your daily life. And now you can show that to others so they can learn that, right? And let me just tell you one last thing. I think that, being an immigrant is just like our faith, right? My parents took a leap of faith in 1983, 84, and they decided, hey, I'm going to America, right? And all those prayers they had and everything that they worked hard for, they never knew what it was going to amount to, right? They didn't know what was going to happen from that. They just knew they were going to miss their friends, their family, their surroundings, their in Spanish we call it nuestra patria, like our nation,
Mm.
right? Everything that we love about ourselves. If you're Puerto Rican, the beaches, if you're talking about Central America, the coffee, right? All these things that we love about ourselves, we were going to let those go and come here, right? And then, just like our faith, sometimes we don't see the end product. Thank God that my parents are still young and old enough to see this end product, right? That they're able to see what me and my brother have become here in the U.S. and what we've been able to create. That we're able to create 30 jobs here. That we're able to now we have a company in El Salvador that provides job opportunities to 8 people in El Salvador, right? That I'm able to go back to my home country and provide work there and to pay for kids' colleges, right? They've been able to see
Wow.
that, right? But other people don't get to see that fruition. But just like faith, that you made a step and hopefully the future generations, right, would have been able to see the glory of the American dream because someone took a step of faith and left their home country and left everything that they knew and cared for. That's one thing that I think as Americans, we need to understand that immigrants are doing, right? It's not an easy decision just to leave, right? You're leaving so much behind, right? And the way I put it together in my head was when my daughter was 2 years old, I looked at her and I was like, would I be able to leave her and go somewhere else just because the opportunity was better there and understand that I might not be able to see her grow up for those couple of years until I came back or until I brought her with me, right? And then I understood the sacrifice that my parents had to do and that every immigrant has to do that. So there has to be something that the U.S. has, and there's something that their countries lack, right? That is
Mm.
needed here, and that makes them want to come here and see that, and definitely having Christian principles in our Constitution, and living out, being able to live out that dream, right? That you can start at the bottom, but you can make it all the way to the top if you work hard, if you apply yourself, and if ultimately for me, put God first.
Oh, that was great, and well put too. I like how you rehashed that there to make it simple, for those that don't understand what we're talking about. We're talking about the American dream, and what does that look like for everybody? I mean, whether you're an immigrant or not, everybody has the American dream. Sylvia said here, being able to give my kids a college education and have my retirement, being able to help others. And it's definitely, I think a lot of my friends that are immigrants have that same, my family, my retirement, helping others. So Oscar, as we're rounding third base, what would you say is your call to action for those that are watching?
I think that one, have compassion and grace for those that are going through the process, right? Yes, we do have to hold people accountable. If they're doing it the wrong way, point it out, right? And it is easier to say to hold people accountable than to do, right? But I think that if we apply some of that compassion and grace that God speaks about so much, that it'll be easier for us to understand where they're coming from, what they need, and then us be able to step in and maybe help with that process, right? However it is, whether it's giving them knowledge, or putting them in touch with the right people. One thing I continue to do is, hey, you're going through the process here. Let me put you in touch with the lawyer that helped me to go through the process. And a lawyer that I know didn't care about making money. What he was always telling me is like, it's not time yet. You have to wait till the right uh, way to do it is available for you and for your process, right? Because everybody's process is differently. Some people are here because a loved one asked for them. Someone's here because they got married. Some other people are here for asylum reasons, right? Because things back home are deteriorating quickly. many different reasons. So you have to find the right person that you can trust. Someone that is can be referred to you. So a call to action is to get out there and help people in the process, right? And then hold people accountable to that process too, right? It is hard, to tell someone you're doing something wrong, but I think ultimately, whether they thank you again, they might not, but in the future, they will be thankful that someone pointed things out to them that will benefit them at the end.
That was a great call to action. So as a father, as a mentor, as a husband, as a business owner, what would you say are your final thoughts talking today on our Money Monday segment on the American Dream?
I would say to those that are sitting in my shoes, which means that you're a first generation immigrant, meaning that your parents brought you over, or that you're the firstborn here after your parents came over, right? I would tell you to not put that to waste, right? I know how much my parents sacrificed. I know how much they did in order for me to have the capabilities or even the access to the capabilities of what I do, right? And because of that, it made me work that much harder to make sure that I can make them proud, and I can show them that all the sacrifices they did were something for something greater that actually came to pass. Right. The worst thing is not to ever meet your or fulfill your uh, purpose and what God has in store for you. Right. And we spoke about it this morning. You have to step into it. You have to be willing to step into that purpose, and willing to go above and beyond. It's easy to come home and hang out after work. It's easy just to come home and and stay and watch Netflix all weekend. But it's harder for you to say, well, look, what is God putting in my heart? Let me get out there and get after it. And on the times that the downtime that I have, I'm going to get after my dreams, right? You need to work to pay your bills, but we have so much time after work. It's 40 hours of the week is work. You have so many hours to be able to go after your dreams after that. And I think that as a first generation immigrant, we owe that to those people who sacrificed everything to get here. And if there's any way to repay them, is to show them the fruits of their labor, which is whatever we become, right? And hopefully my children will see what I had to, or what their grandparents had to endure, and one day they'll be able to show us that if they become doctors, if they become engineers, whatever it is that God has for them, that then we can say, wow, look, 2 generations later, this is what it was. This is why we did it, and it was all worth it.
Wow, I love that, paying it forward. Definitely for those that are watching, as we're rounding third base, the idea for these shows is to make or save money. So if you work hard, take action, be good stewards, stay out of trouble, always looking to do good, paying it forward, then in time, you will be able to buy your house, start your business, have your family, grow your family, get plugged in a church. And so, Oscar, that was awesome. So well put. It was so great having you on. I hope you had a good time today.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to speak about my story, and definitely I look forward to us working together going forward. Many other projects to make sure that we are able to help people to save, and make sure that they understand the the impact that owning their own home, impact of having excellent credit could have on their lives now and in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. And as in closing, I always have a quote of the show, and this is by Michael Phelps. You can't put a limit on anything. The more you dream, the further you get. I hope you guys enjoyed this segment on the American Dream. Again, this is Anthony Rosa, the community finance coach, aka Mr. Remedy. We'll see you soon. Oscar, hang out with me in the afterglow. Everybody else, we'll see you soon. Peace out.